Have you ever felt a decision was gut-wrenching? Or experienced a literal heartache after a loss? Have you ever described feeling a weight on your shoulders during a stressful time? These phrases are so common in our language that we rarely stop to consider what they truly imply, a profound, undeniable connection between what we feel in our minds and what we experience in our bodies. It's one of the most peculiar, yet intuitive, ideas in psychology, the concept that our emotional difficulties can end up physically residing in the body. We can understand, perhaps, that a difficult event might get lodged somewhere in the mind, becoming a painful memory or a recurring thought pattern. But how, and by what mechanism, might a difficulty get remembered or stuck in our very muscles, joints, and organs? Can a kidney really remember a sorrow? Could a wrist or a femur truly hold on to the memory of a punitive parent or a painful divorce? The truth is, the mind and body are not two completely separate, impermeable entities. Modern science is continually reaffirming what ancient wisdom has known for centuries: they are an integrated system. A great deal of emotional traffic flows between them constantly. On a biological level, this is not a mystery. When your brain perceives a threat, whether it's a looming deadline, a difficult conversation, or the memory of a past trauma, it doesn't differentiate much from a physical threat. Like a tiger in the grass, it triggers the same primal response. The sympathetic nervous system kicks into gear. It floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense up, ready for fight or flight. This is a brilliant system for short-term survival. But what happens when the threat is chronic anxiety or unresolved grief? The body remains in a low-grade, constant state of alert. That muscle tension never fully releases. The hormonal cocktail of stress continues to circulate. And over time, this creates real, physical consequences. So, when we are sad, some of the grief in our minds may very well find a home in the chronic tension of our shoulders, leading to knots and pain. When we are terrified or anxious, some of that fear born from our imaginations can grip onto our lower vertebrae, creating a deep and persistent ache that no amount of stretching seems to fix. The difficulty, of course, is that our organs lack eloquence. They have their own language. But it's a language of sensation, not words. They are not, by design, particularly well suited to explaining the nuances of how terrible a relationship is, or how difficult and lonely it once was around our mother. Our brains, which have the immense advantage of being directly tied to our mouths, have trouble enough letting on what is truly going on inside them. So much of who we are, our deepest fears and desires, remains deeply lodged in a kind of unconscious darkness. For their part, our bodily organs are even less suited to writing our psychological biographies. But they do communicate. Let's consider some of the ways the body speaks its own vocabulary of distress. Chronic jaw clenching or TMJ issues can often be the physical manifestation of unexpressed anger or frustration, literally biting back the words we dare not say. Persistent stomach problems, like irritable bowel syndrome, can be linked to deep-seated anxiety and fear that can't stomach it, feeling made chronic. Recurring tension headaches might be the result of immense mental pressure or a resistance to a situation we feel powerless to change. Even skin conditions like eczema or hives can flare up in response to stress, reflecting issues with boundaries or feeling perpetually irritated and exposed. Nevertheless, if we can put it this way, the body has a conscience. It is fundamentally honest. It won't let certain things go. If the primary pathway to self-expression has been blocked down the verbal retief, we cannot, or will not, speak our pain. Then there may be no option but for certain crucial messages to be redirected through our bodies. But why do we become so adept at this emotional avoidance in the first place? Often, it's a learned behavior. We're taught from a young age to be strong, to suck it up, to not burden others with our feelings. We live in a fast-paced world that prizes productivity over emotional processing. We fear that if we truly open the door to our pain, we will be overwhelmed by it. So we push it down. We distract ourselves. We tell ourselves we're fine. And that, ultimately, is the point of the body's intervention. Bodily pain is incredibly hard to ignore. We suffer certain sorts of pain in our bodies precisely when our minds become far too ingenious at overriding their own pulses of distress. We get into these troubles because we are masters at looking past our own low-level depression or chronic anxiety. We can rationalize, minimize, and intellectualize our feelings away. But when the deep self can't take our emotional negligence any longer, we may develop the sort of relentless backache that makes it incontrovertible that something is very wrong. Our stomach may well have to scream what our minds are determined to only whisper about. Our kidneys may have to give a voice, however ineloquent it may be, to troubles that have found no linguistic road out into the world. So, if the body is sending us a message, how do we begin to translate it? The first step is a radical shift in perspective, from fighting the pain to listening to it. This means cultivating curiosity and compassion for our physical symptoms. We can start with simple practices. A body scan meditation, for instance, where you bring gentle, non-judgmental awareness to each part of your body, simply noticing the sensations without needing to change them. This is a direct way of saying to your body, I am listening. Journaling is another powerful tool. You can even write from the perspective of the pain itself. Ask your aching shoulder or your tight stomach, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need? You might be surprised by the answers that surface. Of course, professional help in the form of therapy, especially somatic therapies designed specifically to work with the mind-body connection, can provide a guided and safe space to unpack these complex histories. The goal is always the same, to create a bridge between the physical sensation and the emotional story behind it. Our bodies are liable to end up showing far fewer symptoms of the sort that doctors can't get to the bottom of. The more we can consciously understand and process our background traumas, the more we can speak, whether through words, writing, or creative expression, the less we will need to symptomize through our bodies. A body can't ever really tell us more than the simple, urgent fact that something is wrong. It waves the red flag. The next bit, the sifting, the recollecting, the mourning, and the interpreting, that essential work has to be done by the mind. But we can, and should, say thank you to our bodies for keeping us, as it were, honest about what we have gone through, even if it does so with great pain. They are mute historians, inarticulate historians, but historians nevertheless, holding the archives of our unlived lives. And the more we can take the burden of memory off of them and carry it in our consciousness, the less they may need to suffer in an effort to help us remember. So let us learn to listen. Let us treat our physical selves not as a source of frustration or a machine that has broken down, but as a wise, though silent, messenger and partner in our life's journey. By tuning into these signals with compassion and curiosity, we don't just find relief from pain, We begin a profound journey of healing. Of integrating the fragmented pieces of our past into a stronger, more complete, and more authentic present. This is the path to not just feeling better, but to becoming wholly a future where our minds and bodies are no longer at war, but are finally, beautifully, and harmoniously at peace. If this conversation about the deep connection between our minds and our bodies resonates with you, and you want to explore more ideas for a calmer, more self-aware life, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Join our community as we continue to learn how to listen, heal, and grow together. Thank you for watching.